This is my home. This is my city. This is where I live. Home is where my mother and father are, but it's also where my apartment is, where Mummy and Daddy work, where I go to school, and where we walk and play in the park. Daddy says that when I grow up, it's going to be a big city where a lot of cars drive and more people are going to live. I think that means I'm going to have loads of more friends when I grow up. Mummy, although, says that when I grow up, I'll have her responsibilities. I will be in charge of making home a cozy place for my family. I'm not sure if I like that idea, because I hate cleaning my room. This is my home. This is my city.
This is where I live. Dad was right. The city just keeps on growing and getting bigger. We have more offices, more cars, more shops, more streetlights, more roads, more and more of everything. More queues and more traffic jams. The feeling of freedom has diminished a little bit, but I've grown used to that. If only I could do something to get that familiar feeling back when I was a little girl. This city used to be my playground. Now it belongs to cars, industries, shops and office buildings. The only thing that still looks dear to me is our home, our old apartment. This is my home.
This is my city. This is where I live. Now I understand what my mother meant. She wasn't talking about our apartment. She was talking about our home, our city. I am in charge. This city, this home, it has become a cozy and safe place for my family. We have come a long way to make it so, but it has been worth every minute. I know my husband is going to be on time at work, thanks to the smart road network. I know my children are going to be safe due to all the effort towards smart traffic lights. I also know that my work days are as efficient as they could be due to our contribution towards building new infrastructure procedures and means to travel. Everything is simpler, faster, and more efficient these days. But that's not what I really care about. For now, the only thing I care about is a safer and greener environment for my children, and contribution towards that is something I'll continue to partake in the future. I hope you will too. Let's work together to bring a bright future closer to us and to those whom we love. This is our home. This is our city. This is where we live.
Tere hommikust kõigile. Tere tulemast Targa tulevikulinna seminarile. Meie seminar on täna põhiliselt inglise keeles. So the seminar today will be mostly in English. But we accept also mixed language, and in the panel discussion, some part of the panel discussions will be also in Estonian. I am Jarek Kurnitski, happy to moderate this event, and for the opening words, I would like to invite TalTech Rector Tiit Land. Please, floor is yours.
Tere hommikust! Ma alustan ka eesti keeles ja seejärel ka tervitan inglise keeles. Head kolleegid, partnerid, külalised ja sõbrad, mul on Tallinna Tehnikaülikooli rektoridi poolt väga-väga hea meel tervitada teid tänasel seminaril, kus me vaatame ja arutame tuleviku üle. Tehnikaülikooli missioon on edendada teadust, innovatsiooni, tehnikat, tehnoloogiaid ja loomulikult olla ka juhtiv inseneri ja tehnika haridusandja Eestis. Ja meie visioon on jätkusuutlik, innovaatiline Eesti jätkusuutlikus maailmas. Kui me nüüd vaatame nüüd missiooni, visiooni, siis on meile kõigile arusaadav, et tänapäeval ei piisa ainult nimetame siis distsiplinaarsest uurimistööst ja õppetööst mingites kindlates distsipliinides, vaid me vajame palju enamat, palju laiemat pilti. Ja Targa linna tippkeskus on üks näide, väga hea näide sellest, kuidas Tehnikaülikool ja me kõik panustame Eesti ühiskonda laiemalt ka väljaspoolt Eestit ja me teedame oma missiooni ja viime ellu oma visiooni. Ja kui me nüüd vaatame tulevikku, me arutame täna tuleviku üle, kui me vaatame tulevikus, võib-olla mõtleme hetkeks tagasi ka minevikku, et mis on viimase näiteks 20 aasta jooksul toimunud kõige kiirem kõige olulisemad muudatused on loomulikult olnud väga kiire infotehnoloogia areng, mida me 20 aastat tagasi kindlasti ei osanud ette näha sellisel kujul. Kiire infotehnoloogia arenguga on ka muutunud paljud protsessid efektiivsemaks, paljud ametid on ära kadunud, on tekkinud uued, aga kui me nüüd vaatame tulevikku, siis on minu soov, et me rohkem seaksime kesksele kohale inimese. Et ehk siis kasutame ära meie infotehnoloogia edusamme, arenguid, mida on viimase 20 aasta jooksul meil väga-väga palju võtta, aga kindlustame endale jätkusuutlikku tulevikku, tarka, kliimatarka linnakut, suuremaid linnu ja näitame ka eeskuju teistele. Ja Tehnikaülikool on, olles rahvusvaheline teadusülikool, on mulle ka väga hea meel tervitada, öelda tere tulemast tulevikulinna professorile Jenni mul perekonni ja soovida talle tere tulemast Tehnikaülikooli ja ma soovin ka tänada partnereid, kelleks on Ülemiste City, Tallinna linn, Ericsson ja teel ja ma loodan, et ma ei unustanud kedagi ära. Et veel kord ma soovin tere tulemast ja lõpetuseks ma soovin ka tuletada meelde, et Targa linna tippkeskus on välja kuulutanud väga suure investeeringu. See on 15 miljonit eurot, mis läheb heas mõttes loosi 10 suure projekti vahel, 1,5 miljonit eurot iga projekt. Ja tähtaeg on 6. november, olgem aktiivsed, mõtlegem suurelt tulevikku ja ka juba järgmise nädala, täpselt nädala pärast 13. oktoobril toimub infotund. Et veel kord soovin meile kõigile jätkusuutlikku ja nutikat tulevikku. Dear colleagues and friends, I'm very, very happy to welcome you on behalf of TalTech on today's event, which is about looking into the future. So if we think about the future or if we plan about the future, I think it's wise also to look back what has happened during past 10, 20, 30 years and what has been the main or the biggest change during past 20 years, 25 years has been explosive and expansive growth development of ICT. So this has also given us huge opportunities for future and my wish is that when we plan for the future, we use our ICT tools, but we also build a more sustainable environment and where the heart is in the center is a human being. So TalTech as an international university, I also would like to welcome new professor on future cities, Jenni Partanen. I wish you welcome to TalTech. Yes, I got the name, I'm sorry. And I also would like to thank our partners who have helped us to establish this professorship. Ülemiste City, City of Tallinn, Telia, and also Ericsson. So once again, I wish you good ideas and I wish us all sustainable future. Thank you very much.
Future city development should mean a lot of cooperation in between universities, private sector, public sector, and Vice Rector for Entrepreneurship, Sven Illing, is happy to coordinate this work. So we will have another opening words from ettevõtlusprorektor Sven Illing. Palun.
Hello to everybody. I'm incredibly happy that this professorship is initiated and funded also by entrepreneurs and companies. So I hope that this will be sort of a good example also for other companies to come forward and talk to the university and initiate and collaborate with the university. I also hope that that this professorship gives another boost to developing smart city in Estonia as a whole, and gives also edge to our companies. Hopefully, even some spin-offs will come out of Taltech thanks to this developments here. And this is as you know yourself, it's incredible revolution is going on in smart city space. I think our companies might have very good opportunities to offer our services and products worldwide. I guess you all heard about this one mega project that Saudi Arabia has started, building a totally new smart city called NEOM, and they have already started building it, and the cost is $500 billion. So why not? Our companies could participate over there, and our university could consult them. So finally, I would like to also thank all the parties who have made this happen, that we have this professorship opening. And I'd like to also wish good luck to one of the participants, Minor, who's a nominant in Estonian year of the company awards. So good luck and have a good conference.
Tallinn is the pioneer of digital innovation and e-society. Most transactions happen online. The startup-friendly environment encourages innovations like e-residency, a government-issued digital ID to start and run a global business in the European Union. Parcel delivery robots and self-driving cars are on the streets. Ride-sharing is legalized and properly taxed. Here, living a green and healthy life is a human right with free public transport and a park and ride system for drivers. All this with smart management systems. Tallinn is where creativity and action unite a society and change the world. We believe in jointly bringing about a better future, like connecting Tallinn and Helsinki with Hyperloop One. The future is now. The future is in Tallinn.
Good morning, Thomas. Good morning.
Hello, Ursel.
How your working days has been started yet?
Oh, thanks for asking. Very good. We are currently working on this new development plan for the smart city and green capital for Tallinn.
Oh, super. I have a few questions. Can we make a video call to discuss it a little?
Yes,
you are here. Super.
Greetings from Freedom Square.
Very good. To come to my questions, we would like to develop in Ülemiste city the environment where talents can grow and succeed. And they can have an environment where they can spend time with work, family, and hobbies, and spend less time in cars, in traffic jams, which is not valuable for person, for a city, and for economy of Estonia. Therefore, we have done as well several customer researches, and they say that they would like to have more greenery, more parks, more places to be for relaxation, thinking, and analyzing things. I wanted to ask, to get rid of cars, how we should develop and plan further with public transportation services in Tallinn city. Can we do it together somehow?
Yes, of course. And in the coming years, from the city perspective, we very much focus on new carbon neutral public transport, as we have already the free of charge public transport. And also we need to look at efficiency in route management. And this is why we need to see the mobility in general. So where do people actually live, where they go to work, and where they study. And yes, we have done actually several data mappings and analytics around this. But this is a point where I definitely see that we need to do more work actually with the university. What do you think?
Very good idea. And actually, we did a very good innovation pilot in Ülemiste city, and there was self-driving bus, which was made here in Untitled campus. And this project was so popular that people liked to use this route, this service, and they even evaluated that this self-driving bus is secure, and they would like to do it even without operator. Can you imagine? It's a very good point where we can build better public transportation service by integrating demand-based transportation and self-driving buses.
Project Fabulous is initiated by 6 countries and financed by European Commission. It is focused on implementing and developing services based on autonomous shuttles as a last mile mobility provider. This project started already 1.5 years ago.
Fabulous project has been a huge success for Auotech. Additional to the autonomous system, Auotech has created a self-driving vehicle that are actually now road legal. That will open the new doors for us in the whole world. We can aim forward for creating the best solution of the autonomous vehicles and the infrastructure in the world.
The university role in this project was to focus more the research and science part. So our role is that we study the new functions, what we need in self-driving vehicles, how the autonomous functions should behave, the cybersecurity and all other aspects what we need for the safe ride. So this is our role in this project, and there is a long way still to go to solve all the self-driving issues.
The idea of such solution is to provide extra value for modern public transport because last mile is a biggest bottleneck of being public transport competitive to private cars. Our goal is to kind of demonstrate not only the technology but also how the service is operating and what are their different elements, and to investigate how to make such solution as a turnkey solution for public authorities.
I think this project is a very good example about the collaboration. We have the company, we have university, we have local authorities, government part, and in this collaboration everybody has their own role, and everything worked well. Very much together, so it's very good example in that sense, and that's probably the reason why this project is also very successful.
Yes, indeed, and whole story about data is becoming increasingly important for the cities, and I guess one of the biggest sources for our data is, of course, coming also from Internet of Things, cameras, sensor-based detections, but still, however, we not talk only about data protection and how to track the people. This is not the story. I think it's more important to get to know more knowledge and how to develop our services for the people, or to become this more human-centric in that way. Yeah, so this is what I think is more important about that.
I fully agree, because a few years ago we had a quite huge problem that our talents, our people spent 5 to 10 minutes to find first free parking place in peak parking areas. And you can imagine what kind of money was driving around the parking areas. And therefore, we developed, based on our existing infrastructure, our security cameras. We added AI solution which detects the free parking place. And now we have quite good parking solution which shows to people where is the closest free parking spot. And I would like to show you the solution. And but right now, as you are a little bit far away, then I will show a video, and then I will invite you to visit us.
Tööpäev alustan lemmiklooga. Koristan kiirelt auto. Ringutan. Õpin uue võõrkeelse sõna. Helistan vanaemale. Ning lõpetuseks üks jõuuinak. Kaheksa minutiga jõuan palju. Nutikas parkimissüsteem võidab autojuhile päevas keskmiselt 8 minutit. Kokku 24 000 minutit ajasäästu kõigile Ülemistes parkivatele autojuhtidele.
How did you like it?
A very good solution, very awesome. Yes, we could use it more widely in Tallinn to save some valuable time for our citizens.
Yes, and one way to actually get rid of so many cars is to promote light traffic, to get people on the bike or walk, and to improve people's health as well through it. So our research in Ülemiste area showed that people are ready to walk if they live around 1 kilometer from work, or bike if they are 5 kilometers from work. They are ready if the infrastructure support it. What are plans? What kind of plans do you have regarding light traffic in Tallinn?
Yes, this light traffic topic is a very important one, and this is included in a cycling strategy for Tallinn, where we add more and more cycling paths, and of course the safety of cyclists is also important. But there is also this green point, so how to make the city more like a green city. And of course there are several other light mobility solutions, electric scooters, and the ones who use less urban space. I think I know that there is one bike keep solution that came to my mind. Maybe I can share you this over the screen so you can see what I think about it.
Very good solution. All these solutions are generating huge amount of data. Can you imagine how many data points and what could be done with this data? Thomas, do you have a good plan how we can collect this data, analyze this data, visualize this data, and get better and more clever decision based on this data? Do you have something in mind already?
This is true that the data is a new oil. And as a Tallinn, we have actually created the first dashboard for the city of Tallinn. This is for the data collection and visualization of our own data sources. And this is for the city administrator, the administration, citizens, and also international ones who are actually interested in our solutions. So there is another video. Maybe I can share that over the screen to you so you can take a look.
The collected data can be viewed through user-friendly web gateway called the Tallinn Dashboard. The dashboard collects data live and offers information on a wide range of subjects. For example, the coronavirus. also traffic. You can see live streams of various parts of the city, or how many cars and pedestrians use the specific street, also noise level, electricity usage to keep the street lit, and many more. Plus you can follow all the trends of the measured activities. Through Tallinn dashboard you can see detailed planning information of each lot and volume of the building in 3D. The dashboard also offers information on how many people and who lives here. Congratulations! Tallinn City Dashboard is always up to date.
So as you have seen, we have addressed a number of city challenges here, which have been able to tackle successfully. But we cannot find all the right solutions ourselves in terms of mobility and other areas. That's why actually we found that we need to work with the university and researchers to create a livable city, digitally livable city, as Tallinn is.
I fully agree. But thank you for now for very fruitful discussions. And I would like to kindly that you will visit Ülemiste city in the nearest future. What about next Wednesday?
Let me check my calendar. Yeah, it's fine. So see you then.
Super. See you next Wednesday. But for now, I'm happy to invite to the stage future city professor Jenni Pardanen.
Thank you, Ursula. Hello, everybody, and thank you for this great opportunity to work with you and be here today to present not only our plans for the project, but also some ideas and visions of how the city of the future, the smart city, will be. I'm today talking about urban futures. I'm doing it in a twofold manner. I first start by drawing visions and hypothetical, even imaginary pathways into future cities with all-pervasive technology. After taking this quite far into the possible future, I return for the second part, down to earth, to the present and to immediate future, to present some directions we are planning to take in the project for understanding, guiding and planning the future city. We are here because of an obvious reason. We stand at the threshold of smart city. It has become very palpable that cities are changing constantly. But what we know for sure is that cities will not be qualitatively the same in 25 years that they are today. We know that as certainly as we know that the cities 25 years ago were not exactly the same as they are today. So it's also quite evident that despite our serious attempts to steer and guide and control the cities with the top-down plans, policies and regulations in the past, these tools have often been inefficient. That is because, to a great extent, cities change from bottom up. They change as a result of myriads of decisions by individuals, firms and companies, which are often manifested as building and development projects in the city, resulting in surprising patterns, trends and clusters on the city level. Overall, this self-organizing process is quite resilient. However, from time to time, the urban system faces serious transitions that shakes the economies and societies fundamentally. Good example is the Industrial Revolution, but there are others. We can see that urban progress and evolution is not smooth. It is non-linear, evolving through ruptures. Such progress evolving through phases or waves was noticed already more than 100 years ago by Nikolai Kondratyev, and since this, his ideas have been revisited several times and adopted by many others. It is also intrinsic in, for example, in so-called complex adaptive systems theory. These so-called K-waves imply a simple process, that is continuous and repeating itself. Along with novel innovations, the productivity in society increases, generating wealth and product development, but also resulting in quite surprising qualitative changes in the society. And consequently, in the end, it's followed by slower growth or decline before the new wave. The significance of the last stage, releasing of resources, or so-called creative destruction, was stressed in 1920 by, for example, Joseph Schumpeter. A more or less controlled collapse is evident, if not even considered necessary, for a new takeoff in the system, for new innovations. The wave could go, therefore, at first there is a fast growth, then settling, productivity decreases, and then destruction and reorganization of the system. In this way, systems evolution, so-called new species or new innovations, can fill available niches. A good example is species evolution or cultural evolutions. The self-organizing new state or new wave is intrinsically unpredictable. Next one, and perhaps the last one of the waves, so-called sixth K wave, would be the smart transition, and we are witnessing it right now. It could be the last one, since it's been suggested that these waves are becoming more and more frequent, and interestingly, in future, even simultaneous and overlapping. That could mean that we are on the way to an increasingly turbulent progress regarding innovations, their applications, constant creative destruction, and renewal of the system. As the innovations are generators of the waves, that will be the era of constant innovations. We are going towards the time where innovations become even more prevalent and important than ever before. From the perspective of spatial and functional cities, the innovations in information and transportation technology have been considered the key in the change of the urban form and the ways we use the cities. We can say that they distort the space-time continuum. The famous science fiction writer H.G. Wells suggested already in 1902 that the transportation is a number one essential factor in formation of cities, and that there is a limit of how long time we're willing to move in one day for work. He suggested 2 hours a day, but that's debatable. Later, the idea has been again revised several times. For example, Cesare Marchetti in the 90s introducing the concept of universal commuting time. There is a logic that is clear. Cities growth and renewal is coupled with the progress in transportation and communication methods. Sociologist David Harvey suggested again in 1999 that cities are shrinking by time-space compression. Trains, airplanes, cars have helped us to get further in shorter time, and meanwhile our communities have expanded. Increasingly in the future, along with other space-distorting innovations like virtuality and mixed reality, 3D printing, autonomous vehicles, and so on, we are not anymore tied to land, geometry, geography, routes, or physical movement. Theoretically, it's been said that distance may become zero, so to speak. We are everywhere instantly. But for a long time, of course, maybe permanently, we live in a transition phase in a coupled system of virtual and corporeal movement and presence. Regarding transport, we have considered that the physical cities have a certain metabolism. The flows of people and goods create good locations to activities, and resulting build structure starts to steer the flows and so on in a circular manner. Virtuality and automatization might partly change that. It, however, sets the foundation for the change. While the digitalization is a very recent phenomenon, the ongoing progress, or the sixth wave, is actually part of longer continuous transition that has lasted at least for 250 years. And some say transition from a world from atoms to bits, or from energy to information. recently increasingly supported by certain rules and laws of Moore, Gilder, and Zuckerberg, suggesting exponential growth in computing capacity, processing power, bandwidth, and information humans share online. However, we can take this idea even further. Humans and tools we make have always been coupled, impacting the evolution of each other. In smart cities, even more so. Smartness is not only a list of applications, it's part of coupled human-technology co-evolution. The cities play an intrinsic role in this evolution. They have always been the platforms of innovations, ideas that disseminate and progress through imitation, mutation, and replication. It has been suggested that health and biotechnology could become a game changers in future cities. While solving, of course, many conventional problems, we can have a thought experiment that there are countless other possibilities to progress to make us real-world cyborgs, so to speak. Smart prosthetic systems can give us new senses. They can connect us to all possible systems in the world, gaining feedback from other systems, informing us from, for example, CO2 levels or sea level rise, or give us superpowers like remote control of cybernetic networks around us. This would change drastically how we use and perceive the cities. This sounds a bit science fiction, but actually, we are already cyborgs, inseparable from our cell phones, computers, and other gizmos. Connected to myriads of networks and smart systems 24/7, guiding the programmable city and being guided by it. So what would be the bottom line of all these imaginary future scenarios? We could say that challenges of smartification in city scale would be the unpredictability, the K-waves, zero distance, qualitative changes of human life we haven't witnessed before could be the challenges, and therefore the fact that urban theories will not apply anymore as they did. We cannot just extrapolate today's knowledge into future, but we have to anticipate something new or be ready for it. And it's good to know that why it's necessary to look into future every now and then like this, even though we can't predict. We have to be able to plan even for immediate future, and we must understand that operational logics of the future city might be totally different than today. For example, spatial dependencies are changing, maybe even the drivers in mobility. We need to be ready to notice weak signals in actors' behavior to be able to react swiftly. World is not linear. This axiomatic fact has become very close to us at the time of this pandemic. And this is the point where we move towards the phase 2, the actual project from this imaginary future scenarios. Regarding the challenges I just said, there are things we still can do. We can apply credible visions, suitable applicable theories and empirical data of cities and reflect them back to each other to learn how the system's dynamics operate. We can anticipate plausible scenarios and revise methods usable for smart systems. For the project, our time span is of course more modest than what I presented before. While we must anticipate a possibility for more drastic changes, including more all-pervasive virtuality, automatization, and cybernetics, our anticipation concentrates in the near future, while of course staying awake for other changes. Therefore, we also adopt the metabolic model for setting our sub-project. The intertwined system of mobility, spatial configurations, and human actors as promoting force form our sub-project or work packages for the project. So the overall question in city planning in general is an old question. And now it's revisited for future city. How to build viable, high-quality urban environment in this current and future technology-mediated city. It is an essential question for continuity and existence of cities. The renewing capacity of cities is founded on actor-based economic and social processes. Digitalization is challenging some of the very basic spatial manifestations. So, and consequently, the practical challenge would be to encourage and guide these processes in this new situation, yet unseen, while generating high-quality urban environment. So to set a general premises for this project, where to start? We can say that in the future city, we will live in the era of constant innovations. Diversity, encounters, and constant flow of people generate innovations. And that city is not uniform, but certain dynamic, maybe self-organizing enclaves of innovation and diversity play a great role. And for the questions, we can come back later. So, as I said, the Metapolis classification is threefold, and then I'm next going to go through these three work packages: mobility, space, and actors. We're increasingly starting to understand that the traffic system, as well as cities in general, are complex adaptive systems. The individual agents' interactions cause surprising behavior on a higher level, a level of traffic system, or a level of entire city. They could be certain traffic patterns, like unpredictable congestions that make us fail with our predictions of how the system's dynamics operate as a whole. As the aggregate level models can simulate the system's linear properties, they fail to imitate this kind of nonlinear cumulative impact emerging from local level actors, the local decisions of individual drivers. Therefore, we need microsimulations that are able to compute the system's behavior from bottom up. As an example, traffic as an entity doesn't consider the traffic as an emergent phenomenon, where a single driver, as in this example, might cause something that appears as a traffic jam on a higher scale. They ignore the impact of one driver altogether. This mechanism is similar to what is sometimes called emergence. There is an example of flocking birds. Simple rules between birds, for example, don't collide to each other, align and move to the same direction, result as a flocking behavior. As an aggregate level, we could say that we should model this telling the flock as an entity to go left or right or somewhere else. But as a matter of fact, when we model it, we should use the rules that are related to the interaction between the actual birds, or boids, as they're called in these simulations. Another example from the cities. In this research carried out by MIT a couple of years ago, shows that if we want to reduce congestion in a city, the most efficient way to reduce the amount of traffic jams, it's not necessarily to reduce the total amount of cars, for example, cutting it by 20%. Most efficient way could be to reduce a few cars from certain neighborhoods, and the traffic jams would disappear because of the complex nature of the system and the complex topology of the network. So therefore, we are suggesting that we could build this kind of microsimulation model that would enable exploring of what type of surprising changes would emerge from the local scale drivers' decisions and interaction on the higher scale of the urban traffic system. And we assume that the smoothly operating flows of people and goods play a key role in preferable dynamics of the city overall. We hypothesize that the network topology and bottom-up dynamics of a traffic system makes it increasingly difficult to predict, particularly concerning distribution of future traffic modes or new projects causing changes in networks. And we can ask several questions, like what kind of model based on actual movements on individuals could be able to simulate changing dynamics in a complex mobility system, and how could the changes in network topology affect overall dynamics in this kind of a simulation? What kind of surprising threshold effects would emerge from the system's dynamics? So we suggest that we could build a simulation that is based on distributed decision-making of individual actors like that. The model would operate in a street network of Tallinn and apply real-world data from people's movement. The rules for simulation between the agents would be based on regularities emerging from this real-world data and systems behavior using machine learning. With the model, we could experiment how changes like adding connections, new routes, closing existing ones, affect the traffic flow, congestion, or estimated time of arrival for drivers. In addition, most importantly, the impact of transportation mode selection on the smoothness of flow could be studied. We could add different traffic modes, not only buses and bikes and electronic scooters, but also automatic vehicles and other future transportation modes. We assume that if we run the model exhaustively, that means with all possible input values, like certain shares of bus users, bike users, and car users, and changing these values, and trial with all possible values, we could discover certain threshold, sudden changes in the dynamics that would emerge with certain input values. For example, we could witness smooth flows, sudden changes to periodic congestion, or completely stochastic jams. And this kind of dynamics is impossible to be studied with any other method or any other model. We hope that the results would provide us knowledge of how local changes impact the overall system as a whole. The tool could be applied in service design of delivery businesses, urban and traffic planning for estimating the capacity of networks, and particularly impact of new large-scale projects like transit hubs or large-scale building project, and of course the role of travel mode selection in congestion and smooth mobility. Then for the next, the second package, which is very much intertwined with the first one regarding urban space. Similar to traffic, we have realized recently that urban system in general is very, very complex. These activity nodes and dynamics in city emerge from decisions of firms, individuals, and institutions as they choose where they want to locate. Therefore, the mix of activities and users preferable for urban viability cannot be created for top-down. We can't tell these actors where to go, but the actors must be attracted there. And for that, we need to understand their logics. First of all, it's necessary to study spatial and activity patterns and their emergence. To do that, we need to use advanced spatial data analytics tools. Our aim would be to understand the spatial logics of activity and service nodes and anticipate directions, how they might be changing in a future smart city. Secondly, we need to study the methods for vitalization and diversification of cities and apply them to fit the smart city problematics in local conditions. We could again set a hypothesis that due to transition to technology-mediated urbanity, the ways we use the city will change, along with emergence of new daily rhythms, new activity nodes, and new centralities. The factors related to viability of cities will change to an extent. And therefore, we can ask what factors actually create lively cities, how to recognize the viable or potentially viable areas, and how are they likely to change in smart transition, and what would it mean in Tallinn city? What we're planning to do is that first, we would like to carry out extensive spatial analysis exploring different activity clusters and their evolution in time in relation to mobility network. the diversity level, profiles, and their changes in time. Variables such as socioeconomic census data, mobility data, data of firms, like, for example, revenues, employees, age, industry, as well as a build structure, variables could be age, density, use, level of mix, and so on, could be studied. The traffic network characteristics play a role. They could be studied regarding the nodes. Do certain features of networks, for example, high connectedness, correlate with certain activity node profiles? How are they likely to evolve? Which types of profiles or nodes would we like to encourage, and which one we would like to change completely? Secondly, for viable cities, we will explore urban theory for factors that create vital areas and reflect them against smart city visions and potential following scenarios. We classify the approaches and evaluate their applicability in Tallinn context. We create a new set of indicators, use advanced spatial data analytics to recognize potential areas for scrutinization and apply the indicators in the case areas like Ülemiste and other potential nodes. We can use data of people's actual movements to triangulate the results, implying the flows generate action. We observe the actual use of such areas. Based on the actual results, some planning methods, tactical interventions, policies, workshops, hackathons, and other practical tools can be proposed and trialed as experiments in case areas, most likely first in Ülemiste and then maybe elsewhere. The third package would be looking more closely into smart city urban actors that are promoting this transition. In this sub-project, the urban economics forms a frame. Urban economics refers to a citywide ecosystem of economic actors whose intertwined operation is crucial for continuity of urban systems. Urban economic systems can also be considered very complex. Very many actors, again, make decisions whose cumulative impact, along with the spatial patterns and networks they form, is highly unpredictable. It's, however, important to support their action, of course, and for that we need, again, to understand what would be their preferences, how to attract them and support their operation in the city or in certain urban enclave. These actors have previously followed the principles of agglomeration economics. They gravitate close to similar companies for cooperation and competition and benefit from diverse urbanity, both on the city scale and the district scale. Geographic proximity has been essential for them. In smart cities, however, the current challenge regarding these actors would go as follows. The key economic actors in smart city will have different preferences in their location choices than prior theories and agglomeration economies suggest. And the challenge is, of course, we don't know what they are. So we can ask really tons of questions like, are the premises of agglomeration economics changing for smart cities? Can we observe, for example, some weak signals that key actors could follow a new location logics? Are other forms of proximities, for example, related to networks, more important or becoming more important than geography? And how about the quality of environment, freedom to trial, other factors that could affect them? Therefore, our aim here would be to understand what are the preferences and drivers promoting their location, and what's the impact of smartification of cities into that. We will also develop policies for supporting these actors and enhance urban economic processes. So in more detail, what we're going to do, we will first research and explore the essential characteristics of emerging industries generating the smart cities. What are they? Implied concept of new work doesn't only mean here new industries related to digitalization, but also emerging the ways to work remotely in multiple places, apply virtual and mobile work environment, and including changing attitude and changing, maybe even relaxed understanding of the concept of work. Then we will study, for example, what are the logics according to which firms and individuals that are center for smart city economics make their location decisions, or how they have changed in different industries. We will apply, for example, surveys and interviews, and this qualitative part will be carried out as a case study in Ülemiste city, and later maybe for other potential enclaves. These qualitative results will be reflected to quantitative features of the city, gathered by tracking, monitoring people, spatial analysis, general accessibility surveys, simulation models, and so on. Finally, we will explore the potential methods for attracting these actors. These may include appropriate policies, plans, strategies, or tactical intervention that could be experimented, for example, in Ülemiste area. In the end, this research would produce new knowledge of assumedly changing logics in urban economics and practical data of actual actors' perspective that can be applied in planning and governance of cities for encouraging well-functioning smart urban economies in the future. So this is basically where we stand right now. To be developed the packages further in more detail, and we're eager to start that work right now. So I thank you for your attention, and I welcome all the questions you might have now. Thank you.
Well, now it is really a good time for questions for Jenny about these plans and data collection in Ülemiste. So it's quite dark in that room. I cannot see easily the hands, but there is one. Yes, please.
Hi, Kristi Born from Helmes, and we're also located in Ülemiste, so it sounds very, very interesting here. Complex adaptive systems for traffic, that sounds absolutely fascinating. When do you start the project?
We are working on the project right now already, and now what has happened recently is that we hired 3 PhD students. This is a little bit in progress still, but we have selected the best possible professionals for the PhD students to carry out the work packages. So we are actually doing that already. And we're very eager to do cooperation with and collaboration with everybody who is involved in Ülemiste, for example.
We are Helmes, and we are one of the largest IT companies in this region, so happy to cooperate. And another topic is also, of course, very interesting, this urban spatial analytics. So that definitely is way to future. Have you implemented somewhere it already?
Oh, no, we haven't. I have some previous experience, of course, from other cities, from our previous work, but in Tallinn, not yet. But we have a pretty good idea what we're planning to do. And then now, next thing we're going to do is to write a proper, detailed research agenda, research design, what to do and in which order. And that can be also discussed with actors. So you're welcome to participate.
Sounds fascinating. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, there are a lot of plans for the future, and perhaps any other questions for Jenny? So I see that the expectations are very high, and if I can ask myself, does this, let's say, new reality we are living from spring, does this has affected your study plans and let's say all this COVID-19 and how it will change developments what are ongoing in the cities? Are there any changes for instance, for the mobility, how the people move from one place to another, how the work has been changed, and has this been addressed in your plans when you are planning, let's say, topics for these PhD students and so on?
That is a very essential question, thank you. And there's a lot of different factors and different angles in that topic. First of all, the situation, the pandemic has affected quite a lot of everybody's lives in a cumulative manner, affecting something that affects something else, and then it's like a snowball. And also postponed certain activities we wanted to take. But then in the future, if we look into the very far future, like in the first part of my presentation, I think the most important lesson from COVID-19 for us all is that it really shook us to understand what the uncertainty is in the world, in societies and in cities. It's a very shocking example of that, but there are others also. There are economic shocks and cultural migration, climate change and everything. So I hope that after this pandemic, we will understand better that there is no equilibrium in the world, there's no equilibrium in the cities. There's not going to be any static state that when we reach it, everybody will be happy. It's constant change. And I think in general, we are starting to understand that better and better. For the spatial structure and mobility, I'm not sure if it's going to change overall how the cities will be. There have been already some groundbreaking research on the fact that whether the pandemic is going to change the use of cities permanently or form of cities permanently. And the results are usually that not necessarily, because cities are really, really resilient. They are able to absorb all the disturbances and continue as normal. But what I think is important, another important lesson from this COVID-19, that it was a kind of a test bed for all these zero-distance virtual connections and remote work. And we were thrown into it last spring. Everybody had to work remote, and I couldn't believe how smoothly that went. So I'm really confident that even though we're not probably going to move to entirely liquid instancy, Mike Batty said, or this completely virtual zero-distance space ever. But I think we are maybe moving a little bit towards that direction, and we are not suffering that from too much. Of course, socially, we also had this kind of a two-level or divided society. We had people who had to go to work, and then we had the people like myself who had the possibility to stay home and work remote. So that's another issue, and that can be also participating in the uncertainty at some point. But very, very interesting question.
Yes, so it very well supports what was in the lecture, that it's really unpredictable how the future will go, and we have seen that the development can be really fast if there is a clear need to do something. Then, if we try to discuss about future city research, so what kind of background is needed for that research? So can you say a couple of words about your background? I guess you are architect by profession, but also PhD students you are looking for, they might have different backgrounds. So which capabilities are needed to be successful in that research? How do you see this one?
Yes, in planning and designing and studying cities, this is an extremely multidisciplinary task these days. Probably always were, but at some point it was more happening in silos. We had the traffic planning and separately, and then we had the urban planning, and we had some infrastructure planning and so on. But now, in the era of constant innovation and technological solutions pervading our cities, I think we need more and more diverse professionals. My background is in architecture and urban planning and design, but I've been working a lot with issues that are more maybe geography, like the spatial analytics, Also something with simulation models, that's more computing. And now the people we are hiring we were looking for very wide skill set. So the people we are now contemplating they have multiple backgrounds, for example, urban planning and traffic planning, economy, sociology, and data science. So if we can successfully combine all this knowledge I have and they have, I think we're moving quite fruitfully towards a better understanding of future cities and technological transition we're facing.
So any other questions from the audience? I cannot see any other hands. Perhaps when I hope the audience will be a bit more active when we will proceed to the panel discussion phase. So it looks like it's good time to continue with a panel discussion. So we will still have about 50 minutes. So I would like to invite panel members to here. Jenny will stay here and discussion will continue with Jenny. When Ignar Fjuk from Tallinn City, please come to the stage. When we have Vyacheslav Antipenko from Telia, Martin Seppala from Ülemiste City, and Andrus Tureiko from Ericsson. So please find a seat for you. Mä võtan selle. Päivä. Tere. Yeah, I will keep this corner seat when it's a bit easier. So Jenny Partanen already has been introduced, and now you also a bit know about her background as a city planner, as an architect, urban studies, and she likely will try to do this research so that it is not solving simple or single problems, but looking it more holistically, and when perhaps what we are doing in everyday life, we always solve some single problem, but we cannot see how the full city will develop. Perhaps this holistic view will help in that research. But when to introduce another panel members, and you can do it by yourself. Let's start from Martin Seppala, Ülemiste City. I know you are economist and you know everything about the real estate development. If you can, with a couple of words about your background, please.
Yes, hello, can you hear me? Yeah, hi, my name is Martin Seppala. My background is as said, in business development and in a PhD in economics. I've been also doing some postdoctoral research on various topics, so I know a little bit about the theoretical side as well. But yeah, last 10-12 years then working with Ülemiste City as a developer, a board member there, and otherwise also entrepreneur and investor on the side. So that's shortly about me.
Well, thank you. Then Andrus Tureiko, Ericsson. So,
hello, and thank you for inviting here. My background is Ericsson. Have done it more than 20 years, I guess, in Estonia here, and of course, as a network company, we are interested in all developments here, and it's looking forward for scientific approach in first time I see. It's not first time, but I see this comprehensive and approach to city development arena. And from ICT point of view, I see this very good innovation platform from both sides. Also what we can offer as a 5G and next generation mobile networks, but also innovation platform as a city itself, and of course Ülemiste part of it.
Thank you. And maybe we will continue with Vyacheslav from Telia, please.
Yes, hello. It's good that you hear me. So my background is from Telia. I've been working with IoT actually for the last 3 years. So anything connected devices, smart cities, that's the topic that I handle. And as a matter of fact, I'm actually studying at Caltech as well, finishing my master's degrees in business IT. So research and development and business is interconnected within me.
So they three are all representing Ülemiste city somehow. But then we have even a bigger city, it's the city of Tallinn. Ja Ignar Fjuk tahtis kasutada võimalust rääkida ka eesti keeles. Ignar, palun tutvusta ennast mõne sõnaga. Ignar on tuntud kui arhitekt, loomulikult suure A-tähega, Tallinna linnaplaneerimise ameti juhataja ja mingi uus kompetentsikeskuse plaan on neil seal Tallinna linnas ja Ignar on tuntud ka sellise nimega nagu igiliikuja, sest ta kunagi ei puhka peaaegu või kui puhkab, siis ainult mõne üksiku päeva, aga palun täpsemalt.
Ma lootsin, et sa lõpetadki minu esitlemise, nii et ma ei peagi suud lahti tegema. Aga ma olen tõesti kirju minevikuga, nii et olen aastaid arhitektina tegutsenud, linnaplaneerijana, ühiskonnas aktiivselt kaasa löönud, parlamendis olnud, kunstnikuna tegutsenud. Märtsikuus ilmus romaan ajakirjaniku žanris Eesti raadios ja nüüd 2,5 aastat ka linnas juba ametnikuna, varem mul seda kogemust nagu ei on. Ja kui Jarek mainis seda uut moodustist Tallinna linnas, siis ma selgituseks nii palju, et kuskil aastapäevad tagasi tekkis nagu soov või vajadus, et linna planeerimisse tekiks üks selline kompetentsikeskus, mis vaataks esiteks asjadele suure pilguga, teiseks vaatlaks tuleviku pilguga ja kolmandaks integreeriks erinevate ametite võimekust. Kõike seda praegune linna juhtimine ei ole võimaldanud, me oleme tuppunud väga paljudesse pisiasjadesse ja nii-öelda tuleviku ja suurvaade on olnud nii-öelda magustoiduks nädalavahetustel nii-öelda. Ja nüüd ongi siis meie mõte, mis me koos Ain Valdmani ja Andres Harjo ja Toomas Haidakuga aastapäevad tagasi välja mõtlesime ja esitasime linna peale, et selline kompetentsikeskus võiks tulla linna planeerimise juurde, siis linnapea nagu võttis selle üle märksa suuremas formaadis ja nüüd on siis tekkinud linna või tekib 1. jaanuarist strateegiakeskus, mille juurde või sees on ka siis nii-öelda urbanistika kompetentsikeskus, mis hakkab tegelema üldplaneeringute struktuurplaanidega, linna tulevikutranspordiga, ühesõnaga kõige sellega, milline võiks olla meie linn 50 või 100 aasta pärast.
50 või 100 aasta pärast. Kas 5 aasta perspektiiv on ka ikka?
See jääb poliitikute mängumaaks, kes valimistel kandideerivad.
Nii, väga tore, aitäh. Ja publikule soovitan olla ka aktiivne, et kui tekib panelistidele küsimusi, siis kasutage seda kohe ja kindlasti me teile võimaluse anname. So maybe I would like to start, so let's go to Ülemiste and Sami, have you seen how the way of the working has been changed from the springtime? So is it more remote working and what it means for the premises, for office buildings and so on? How do you see what will be the working in the future and how much we are using a building in the same fashion as we did it previously? Do we need less space for the future or more space because we need to keep a physical distance? This is basically you would need more space for that, but if you will do more remote work, then you will need less space. So what has been the development? Now it's already half year and perhaps some trends are already visible.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that, of course, like everywhere else, then the workspaces emptied quite a lot also in Ülemiste city during the spring. So I don't remember the exact numbers, but let's say 10-20% were still going to work there as well. Of course, now it's normalized a little bit. We're still not in the normal numbers, but clearly more normal now than previous. But I would say that what we're seeing now, and maybe what we're seeing also as a long-term trend, is flexibility. So companies are a lot sort of, and I think this is a trend, a little bit what Jenny was saying also in her sort of speech there, was that this COVID has just accelerated what was anyway happening, and I think that's happening also in the office space business. So that it's we are going more from a sort of dedicated space and fixed space to a very flexible space. So sometimes you need an open office, sometimes you need your own space, sometimes you need a meeting room, and so on. So I think this will just be more and more in the future as well.
So, Jenny, is this something what you wanted to collect the data, how this, let's say, mobility has changed and how people are using office buildings, and what are the changes in the traffic? So, would this type of data be available from Ülemiste, or is there any plan to collect this type of issues?
Maybe I could ask the persons who know about the data best, but hopefully so. And that's one big question, the quantitative part, to follow how the actual dynamics has changed. The other thing is that also asking the people why they're going where they're going, because it could be changing that. If priorly we went to work from 9 to 5 just to be there to work, now it could be changing if we go there less regularly. We go there for a reason. That could be a meeting, that could be for innovating, that could be for social, some kind of building social capacity or something else. So that could be also a kind of a game changer for the future. So it's not just that everybody has to go to work 1 or 2 days per week, no matter what they do there, but instead they have a reason to go there, and the reason is something we don't yet know.
Yeah. So in your lecture you mentioned about the traffic simulations, and when you will go to do some traffic simulations, what will be the scale of these? Is it more in the city scale or somehow more connected to the Ülemiste district?
Well, because it's intertwined system, so I think it's necessary to do it on a wider scale. But you can, of course, concentrate on the impact, how the system causes some emergent phenomena, for example, in Ülemiste area or close to Ülemiste, or changes in Ülemiste affects the whole traffic system. Because everything is related to everything else, and they're also nested systems. So, yes.
Okay. So maybe from Telia and Ericsson's side, you can comment what has happened with data traffic. So this is likely increased much, and how our networks, how well these have been working in these days. Can you comment on that?
Sure. As Jenny actually pointed out, that users' behavior can change pretty rapidly, as we saw it in the spring. But the decisions that we need to make, they have to be based on the data that we have to collect. If we don't have the regular data flows, then we cannot make the right decisions. And yes, when in spring the people rapidly locked down in their homes and moved from city to countryside, we saw that the data traffic rose up to 20 to 30% compared to regular seasons that were before. And luckily all the telecommunication operators could handle that massive upflow. But again, I must stress that in order to do right decisions, we need to at first gather the data. So this is the problem that should be tackled at first. If there's no traffic, then there's no data, but that's okay. But if there's traffic and still no data, then there's a problem for decision makers.
Võib-olla ma küsiks Ignari käest, et kuidas linn liikumise andmeid praegu kogub, et kui palju see põhineb näiteks mobiiltelefonide analüüsil ja kui palju linnal on igasuguseid loendureid ja kõik ju need valgusfoorid ja need ristmikud on ju tegelikult ka, kust need andmed nagu kogunevad, et kui hästi linn suudab nagu seda liikuvusandmete kogumist hallata ja mis siin on nagu tuleviku väljavaated ja plaanid?
Ma olen kindlasti ühte teist seda materjali omandanud, aga ma arvan, et ma ei ole parim inimene selle küsimuse vastama. Neid meetodeid või tööriistu, kuidas seda korjatakse informatsiooni väga mitmesuguseid. No kõige elementaarsem on see bussi valideerimine, mis tagantjärgi nüüd vaadates ja analüüsides seda, siis see nagu annab meile informatsiooni küllalt suure veaga, sest valideerimine on üsna laisk, seal on neid, kes on sellest vabastatud tipptundidel, kui ühistransport on koormatud, siis võib mingil ajaühikul üldse ei toimu valideerimisi, sest kõik teavad, et nagunii mingist kontrolli sinna ei saa tulla. Nii et aga ma selle küsimuse hoopis esitaksin nagu, või paneksin teise perspektiivi, et ma olen nagu aru saanud, et selle targa linna idee on liiga palju või taandatud just nagu informatsioonile või sellele teadmisele, mida me just nagu omame ja mis iseenesest mõistetavalt annab meile nagu pääsu või sisenemise tarka linna. Ma arvan, selle targa linna esimene alus on muidugi see, et me oskame olemasolevat kirjeldada ja mõista, aga järgmine on see, et me peame oskama unistada. Me peame vaatama suure pilguga üle homse, vaatama sinna, kust võivad probleemid tekkida, mitte seal, kus täna on probleemid, vaid kust nad võivad tekkida. Ja selles vaates, ma arvan, linna just huvitab see asjadele suurvaade ja ilmselt on ka niimoodi, et väga mitmesugused lausa on kuidagi öelda kõnepruugiks muutuvad laused me peaksime unustama. Näiteks ka tänane see konverents algas, kuskil oli mingisugune slogan, et tulevik on juba täna. No ei ole. Tulevik on mägede taga. Kui me mõtleme, et täna on tulevik, siis me ei peaks selle valdkonnaga tegelema. Ja see näiteks, et oli ka loengus vist mingi selline mõte, või selline ütlus, et linnad muutuvad. No muidugi, kõik muutub, aga oluline on see, mida meie ise tahame muuta, mida meie muudame. Ja siit algab alles targa linna eksistents või olemasolu. Mida meie tahame muuta.
Nii et see küsimus on pigem selles, et kas meil on olemas siukene visioon või kas need uuringud suudavad meile tekitada selle visiooni, mis suunas linn tahab areneda ja siis seda süstemaatiliselt ellu viia. Või toimub see areng nii, nagu ta pahatihti on toimunud, et lahendatakse üksikuid probleeme ja püütakse nende väljakutsetega hakkama saada ja siis see asi kuidagi kuhugi areneb, mille kohta siis Jenny ütleb, et on unpredictable. Et see, palun, Sami.
Yeah, I could, Martin, sorry, my name is Martin, but yeah, I agree with this that we need to talk about the big vision and so on, and I think when we talk about smart city and so on, and like Ignar said, there's a lot of slogans and so on around related to this, but the question is that, well, when do we arrive? How do we measure? When are we smart, right? When is a city smart? And is that, when we have enough robot policemen or when we have enough, recycled water or whatever, because measurement is quite important. Where do we want to get? What's the vision and so on? And I think ultimately, the best answer I've come up with is that it's the users, right? That do we attract users? Do we attract people? Do we attract businesses? And that needs to be the ultimate form of if a city is smart. You can have the best smart city with all of these technologies in the middle of nowhere and it's empty. If no one wants to come there, it's not really smart. I mean, please challenge me, but this is my view about it, so yeah.
I could maybe add something. I think the smart is really problematic concept, and in theoretical text, in scientific text, I try to avoid it, because it's a little bit similar that Professor Kimmo Lylykangas in his inauguration lecture some time ago said that sustainable architecture and sustainability is a very vague term that kind of refers to good architecture. So I think in cities, sometimes it feels like smart cities are equivalent to good cities. So smart city planning is good city planning. It's smart governance, smart planning, smart this and that. And it's what we used to call priorly like good governance or so on. So I think it's a tricky question.
Yeah. So what would be a better, let's say, general term or theme for this type of research? To be more specific, is it some sort of city development research, or what is when used to be more accurate?
It's a kind of maybe impossible to answer with one concept, but it depends on the context. Sometimes when we talk about the interaction between cities and people, the technological systems and people, I use for example, technology-mediated cities, because cities are mediating us, guiding us with technology and vice versa. But there are so many concepts. I don't know. As you see, I still use the smart city in general context. So
yes, well, perhaps we should also discuss a bit about this technology-initiated development, because technology will open new possibilities, and I would like to touch this next generation 5G, and perhaps this is a question for Ericsson. So this is very soon coming, and would it make possible when all these self-driving cars, or do you see when that would be a reality, when everybody can buy affordable a car, when you can start to work as in your office, and traffic jam will not be a problem in that way. If it takes for you 15 minutes longer, you just work in the mobile office. Would that be one something what we can see already quite in near future?
Thanks for a question. I wish I know answer for self-driving cars, but reality is that we don't even have a 5G network yet in Estonia. But of course, part of a joke, but I think it still starts from dynamics. Is like a COVID situation is redefining distribution and traffic in a network. 5G is another tool, and we in Ericsson call it as an innovation platform, and I was gladly to hear about the city platform and also 5G, because we provide this environment or technical means. How people and the cities are going to use it, it's to be seen. In that sense, I cannot say, will it be a self-driving car or will it be a self-driving airplane? It depends, of course. It's 5G in atmosphere is a little bit more tricky. But I still think that technology is enabling, and like a previous discussion, what do you really need is defined by the people here in the city or urban environment. This is actually what's actually predicting the future. We are enabling developments, that's more a standpoint of 5G, and I think infrastructure-wise, of course, it should be available, and without it, it's very hard to see developments, because we still need to try, we still need to see all those changes and dynamics, and then we can adopt it accordingly. But I think 5G itself will not change without the users anything.
Yes, I just would like to add some contrast to the idea that everybody expects that technology will change the world, will change how we behave. But I actually like Ingvar's idea that you need to have vision. The first change has to come from the mindset. Each of us has a smartphone right now, but how many of us uses it to fly to the moon? It should actually have the capability to operate such a machinery. So I think that once the people actually try to think outside of the box and how the technology could really help us evolve in time, then we can see the real change. 5G, yes, it will come eventually, and it will take some time to implement to the use cases and to the businesses. And yes, it will disrupt some kind of businesses, but we should not expect that 5G will solve all the problems.
Yeah, it also can generate new problems.
Exactly.
Because when these self-driving cars will be affordable, you don't need a driving license. You just sit in and it is cheap when it can multiply the number of cars in the city. And mida siis Ignar teeb ühistranspordiga ja kui see linn on üks lõputu ummik, kui kõik on neid isesõitvaid autosid täis, et kas see on ka üks selline tuleviku oht, mida me peame nagu kartma ja kas ühistransport saab selleks kuidagi valmis olla ja ilmselt on vaja nagu väga suured investeeringud, et siis vältida seda, et need inimesed sinna isesõitvatesse autodesse istuksid ja kõik kohad siis nendega ära ummistaksid.
Enne kui ma vastan, ma selle tehnoloogia nii-öelda kõike päästvasse rolli ka lisaksin ühe pisikese kommentaari, et tehnoloogiaga on alati niimoodi, et ta võib anda sulle midagi, mida sa ootad, aga võib anda ka seda, mida sa ei oodanud. Nii et näiteks tuumaga seotud arengud on andnud meile tuumakatastroofid, tuumasõjad ja nii edasi. Tähendab, igasugune tehnoloogia sisaldab riski, et seda hakatakse kuritarvitama. Ja linnaga seoses ongi tähtis, et alati oleks arvesse võetud see inimese olemus, tema vastuvõtlikkus, tema psühholoogiline valmisolek tehnoloogilisi uuendusi taluda. Teiseks, et oleks ka alati arusaadav, et mis iganes tehnoloogilisi imesid meie linnas ei taha korda saata, on vaja, et säiliks see linnaruum kui selline, see keskkond, kus inimene tahab viibida. Ja kui nüüd sinu küsimuse juurde minna sellest liikuvusest, siis et viimased aastad, 10 aastat on elatud mingisuguses sellises nagu usus, et kui me muudame linna rohkem jalgrattasõbralikumaks või jalakäija sõbralikumaks, siis iseenesest on kõik probleemid lahendatud. Aga selleks, et linna muutu jalgrattasõbralikumaks ja jalakäija sõbralikumaks, tuleb ta eelnevalt luua ühistranspordi sõbralikumaks, mis tähendab seda, et me trammide liikumiskiirus keskmine ei saa olla 15,5 kilomeetrit tunnis, vaid peaks olema 25 või 30 kilomeetrit tunnis. Ja kunagine unistus Tallinna kiirtrammidest, mis oleks kesklinnalt läbinud kiiresti ühendanud kaugemaid linnaosasid, et ilma selleta me ei saa nii-öelda tavatranspordialasid vabastada kergliiklejatele, sest jalgrattur ja kergliiklur või jalakäijal on nagu nii-öelda ühistranspordi sugulane või kaim või tuletis sellest. Kui seda ei ole, kui pole neid pargi ja sõida ümberistumisi ja terminaale, siis see võib teatud maani areneda, aga ta ei anna seda täit efekti. Nii et me ühistranspordi lahendamises on nagu just selline kõige olulisem aspekt, et seda olukorda muuta.
Sami.
Martin. I could comment that what do cars now do? I mean, most of the time they stand still, right? They are in a parking garage or they are in your own garage. So I haven't seen any relevant research showing that the number of cars would go up, but rather it's a dramatic decline. So they are estimating that with self-driving technology, when that comes, we are most likely talking about very few people owning their own car, and we are going to need between 10 and 20 times less cars, because when the car is all the time in motion, it can give you a ride to your office and me to Ülemiste City and so on next to that and so on. So a car can do the job of 20 since it's all the time driving. And I think still about the vision and so on here, I even going further than that, when all cars are self-driving in terms of city visions and so on, I've seen, I think the most believable sort of future visions concerning that are that we are not going to need separate, for example, car roads and pedestrian pavements at all, because all cars know exactly what the other cars are doing all the time. They will never collide, and they will never collide in a person or never collide in a bike. So that means a quite radical shift in how a city will look, because everything is just sort of fluently flowing next to each other. Of course, this is far away, but talking about visions, then I think this is more where we are going. Yeah. 10 times less cars, no traffic lights, no separations in the fields.
No parking halls.
No parking halls for sure. Only charging places.
That would be very nice future vision, but Jenny, have you seen any research evidence that this could be realistic? Because when we speak about some sharing economy, I think usually it's just generated more amounts and we get more of spaces or more of bikes or more of cars if somebody tries to share these. It's basically, it's not reducing to 10%, but very easily increasing by 10%. Is it so? What research evidence tells, let's say, about this type of a trends? Would it be realistic, or how do you see?
Well, I think what Martin said sounds really realistic. That's one scenario, but of course we can't. Well, we have future studies, but basically we can't do research on future yet. So it would be forecasting or scenario building or anticipating. So that's one scenario that is can be plausible. Then there could be other scenarios too. As you said, for example, there's an evidence in OECD countries, I guess, or some Western European countries, that despite our knowledge of how much CO2 emissions cars cause, the number of cars have been going linearly up all the time, like constantly, also this year and next year. And so what we know and what we know is reasonable doesn't necessarily happen. And this is what we also see about our intentions to use technology wisely, and then we can see what has happened, for example, the last US elections and what's going to happen probably this year too. So how we use the technology cannot be anticipated, because humans are very, very clever to come up with really weird solutions, and when everybody decides to do something, then the overall the result can be very good or very bad, so to speak. So for your question, I think it's plausible, but that there are other options as well.
So likely industry will do everything they can to increase the number of products they are selling.
Of course.
So otherwise it's not a nice economic development. But indeed, perhaps it's technically we understand this path, that it's possible to reduce and to do the same amount of trips with less number of cars. But
maybe you would need some regulation from top down to give
some
incentives, yes, to use these cars, or some taxes for owning a private car or something like that. I don't know.
But is this still on? Yeah. But I think, I mean, I've been looking quite a lot into the research and the projections and so on, and I think it's quite common sense, right? I'm not saying that this is the truth and that will happen, but if you think about just the economies of scale and how the price of transport will radically go down. So for sure, there are still people, who have horses, an own horse, for example, and that's fine. I mean, that's something for some people to do, but most people are choosing the sort of more convenient, more cheap method of using something else. And when a car ride costs 5 or 10 times less, I think it's a very strong. I don't think we necessarily need any regulation and so on. But of course, the underlying technology enabling this is of course self-driving, and a well-working self-driving that's 10 times or 100 times more secure than a human driver. Before that, of course, it goes up naturally.
Nii, ka publikule võiks olla hea võimalus diskussiooni sekkuda, kui kuskilt mõni käsi paistaks. Aga nii kaua ma tuleks Ignari juurde tagasi ja sa ütlesid, et trammidega võiks uute trammiliinidega tekitada sellist olukorda, kus saab kiiresti ja suure läbilaskevõimega inimesed saaksid liikuda ühest punktist teise, et kas Tallinna visioon, et mis lahendaks sellist suure läbilaskevõimega ja kiiret ühistransporti, kas see baseerub täna nagu trammidel endiselt mingit sorti rööbastranspordil või on siin mingid metroobussid või mismoodi linn seda näeb, sest paljud arhitektid on ka öelnud, et tramm võib-olla ei oma nii suurt läbilaskevõimet, ei suuda seda pakkuda, kui Tallinnale oleks vaja, et oleks vaja midagi veelgi suuremat.
Seni ühtegi otsust ei ole langetatud, neid versioone on väga palju aga millegipärast mul meeldiks mõelda niimoodi, et kui Ülemistesse tuleb kas siis Helsingist mingisugune kiire transpordivahend või Rail Baltica, et ta siis jätkaks teekonda südalinna alt läbi, vanalinna alt läbi Põhja-Tallinna suunas. Nii et ta on osaliselt siis maa all, osaliselt jõuab maa peale, et nii nagu Helsingi metroo algas ka esimesest liinist ja täna ta on ka ainult üks liin ühes kohas hargnemisega ja see on juba 60-50 aastat tegevuses või see on töös see mõte ja kui nüüd hiljaaegu Tripla suur kaubanduskeskus avati, siis kõige muu kõrval ehitati sinna ka metroojaam, kuigi metroo ise sinna ei jõua. See kunagi tulevikus jõuab. Et ma arvan, et ainult trammidega, mis maa peal liiguvad, me ei saavuta seda hüpet. Et inimesed jätaksid auto koju ja liiguksid ühistranspordiga. Selleks on vaja ka kiiremaid transpordivahendeid või osaliselt teda siis maa alla viia, nii et see on üks võimalustest.
Ja see ilmselt ongi väga tõsine väljakutse, sest kui see autoga sõitmine muutub järjest mugavamaks, et tehnoloogia pakub meile võimalusi, et me ei pea seal, ei ole vaja enam juhilubagi, siis see alternatiiv peab nagu olema olemas ja selle alternatiiviga tegelikult on varsti juba väga kiire. Aga võib-olla võiks tulla ka selle teema juurde tagasi, et kui me vaatame Tallinna arenguid, et missugused on head linnad, kust Tallinn võiks õppida. Nüüd sa tõid küll selle metroo mõtte nagu välja, aga varasemalt on vist nagu mõeldud, et Tallinn peaks ennast võrdlema ja proovima siis midagi positiivset ka üle võtta just sellistest natukene väiksematest linnadest, kas siis nagu Tampere või Göteborg või Malmö, et ühesõnaga me ei räägi päris nendest suurtest metropolidest, et ega Tallinn on küll Eesti kontekstis suur linn, aga me ikkagi päris sama suur ei ole kui Stockholm või Helsingi ja võib-olla see võrdlus ei ole ka nagu põhjendatud, et kuidas sina, Ignar, või ka siis teised panelistid nagu näete, et millega me nagu võiks ennast võrrelda ja kus siis seda häid lahendusi juba oleks nagu ka Tallinnasse võiks nagu rakendama hakata.
Muidugi peab inimene maailma suhtes olema avatud ja sa tegelikult vastasid selle küsimusele juba ära, et Göteborg on tõesti üks sellistest linnadest, mida võiks eeskujuks võtta, aga ma põrgulikult hästi või tahaksin öelda, et me võiksime pigem peegli ette astuda ja meie võrdlus on meie peegelpildis või et me peaksime mõtlema ikkagi selle lähtepunktina ja võrdlusena Tallinnat ja oma võimekusi ja et ega linn ja ruum ja inimese psühholoogia käitumine on ikkagi niivõrd erinevates kultuurides. Ja Tallinn oma spetsiifikaga on nii erinev, et ükski linn ei ole võrreldav sellega. Ja just see, kus me täna oleme, me oleme võrreldamatult kaugemale maha jäänud kui ükskõik milline linn, millega me tahame ennast võrrelda. Nii et see hüppe peab tulema meie mõtlemises kõigepealt.
No kas siis peame Riiaga võrdlema või Riia on ka liiga suur metropool?
Ärme võrdleme.
Siis on Vilniuse või et midagi ikka leiab.
Jarek, ärme võrdleme. See on see saatanlikult paha, et naabril läheb paremini või halvemini. Unustame ära need võrdlemised.
Jenny, how do you see? Can we compare and which would provide relevant benchmarks for Tallinn? So where we can learn and copy to something also to Tallinn. So.
Well, I think we shouldn't copy maybe anything, but to learn from different places. But first of all, I have to say I think Tallinn is the place where others could come to learn of the attitude and environment of innovating and trialing things. I think this is an excellent environment. But now maybe the closest link could be maybe Helsinki, even though you maybe mentioned about the size difference. But I think it's not that serious because anyways the solutions have to be adapted to the local conditions. So I think there is a lot of good cooperation already with Helsinki. For example, our department and the university, this Finest clusters and others. So maybe I start from there.
Okay. Martin, nüüd.
Very good. So I think this comparison is in that sense relevant that we are seeing already now with the help of IT technology and so on that the productivity difference between people is increasing. So we are seeing more and more sort of basic jobs. They are more and more being automated by robots and by technology, right? So the value of the basic doing is decreasing and the value of programming and creating smart solutions is increasing, which means that if a city and if a region wants to develop, they have to attract those key people who are 10 or 100 times or 200 times more productive than the average. And this is where the real competition is between Tallinn and maybe Berlin or Barcelona or Helsinki, Stockholm as well. But it's specifically these highly productive individuals who bring then other jobs and who bring also money and who bring companies to them. And this is, I think, the real game we need to be in. And in Ülemiste City, what we're thinking about every day is how to win this game globally. That's how we need to think, because that if we lose those people, then we cannot build anything. We become like a side economy if we can't attract those.
And in this game, it is likely that accessibility and these are extremely important. So if there is a traffic jam, they are not so happy in Tallinn and they will go to Stockholm, or how it happens, or what you can do in Ülemiste to attract them.
Sure. I mean, I think it's layers always, right? So there's the government and legislation layer, then there's the city layer, and then there's the sort of hotspot layer. And what we can do is develop the best hotspot in the world, and then we can work together with then universities and Tallinn and technology partners and so on to develop the policies and the city layers and the transportation as well. But all of these matter. It's not only, we are not in a vacuum.
Now it will be last chance for the audience to participate. There is one hand, please. Yes, please use a microphone.
Yes, thank you. I'm Krista Campus and I'm the head of Tallinn Smart City Projects Competence Center. Some reflections, being away from Estonia almost 7 years, working in Stockholm and working with Baltic Sea region countries on climate and sustainability, I think we have to think about comparing ourselves. Of course, we have to focus on what is unique and what we can do and what is like those specific important elements in Tallinn which are different from other cities. But on the other hand, I think it is important to compare because from global perspective, the Baltic Sea region is one. And when we are thinking about and talking about smart jobs and smart people, then when they are choosing the location, before they are choosing Ülemiste as a location, they are choosing the city. And the city should be green, city should be sustainable, city should be the people friendly. And I think that is where at least the capitals around the Baltic Sea, they are competing on each other. And that is, I think, what is very strong driving force behind of urban development and planning in this region. So in that sense, I think we have to compare. I would think that Tallinn could compare to Stockholm, Gothenburg, also Helsingborg, definitely Helsinki, when it comes to those, let's say, leading capitals or cities in this region. And I also think what is extremely important is that I agree that when it comes to smart city, then it is enabler only. It is a tool. As well as tool is actually smart governance. So we have to think more and talk more about sustainable development and sustainable cities. And then we have to discuss and we have to identify which are those enablers which are helping us to achieve this sustainable transformation and more sustainable cities. And last reflection is that you have been using a lot of terminology, transportation and traffic. But I think that we have to talk more and more about mobility. A mobility where all those people who are moving in the city are equal. So like transport and those who are sitting in the cars or even in the public transportations cannot be seen like more equal or more important than others who are moving on the cities. So in that sense, I think mobility is the key, and we have to think what are those enablers which are helping people to move better and faster from point A to B. And there can be very, very different possibilities for that, but cities should enable to move the people fast. And when you look at our neighbors and neighboring capitals like Stockholm, where I have been living 7 years, they are very, very intensively and actively working towards improving the mobility of the people. They are closing the streets for the cars, they are improving the public transportation, but more importantly, they are creating, enabling and better environment for different mobility and other mobility options as well. So I think that smart city should be sustainable city, and sustainable city is definitely the city that is using smart solutions and technology to make this environment better for the people. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. So any other comments or remarks from the audience? Yes, please. There is another one.
Thank you very much. Very interesting seminar has been. I'm Ralf Martin Soe, founding director of this Finnish Twin Smart City Center of Excellence. And this is something, especially coming from Jenny's speech, that started triggering in my head that how close we are to a situation that we can neglect smart fully from this dimension when talking about smart cities, because indeed, if 7 years ago, 8 years ago, when this term started off, and when we had smartphones and smartwatches, when it was like a big difference when you had a phone or smartphone, and when you needed to stress this, that hey, this is the smartphone. But now the standard is a smartphone, and when we are talking about phones, we are actually talking about smartphones, because most of us already have smartphones, so it's the new standard, so to say. And this is something I have been thinking a lot recently, that why do we, or how do we, when is the point when we don't need to talk about smart cities anymore, and when we can just say that we're dealing with cities. Cities is the main target point, and cities is the ambition, what we want to change. And there's another dimension to this as well, that I remember very well, that in 2013-14, when I went to Helsinki and first heard about the concept of smart city, and when I went to Brussels, the European Commission, and when I reflected it back that what smart city is, everybody were watching with amazed faces that wow, smart city is something interesting, I haven't heard about this. And back then it was, as a concept, something clearer, which was meaning like digital city. But now every time I go to Brussels, I have to admit I don't understand at all what smart city means over there. It has broadened up to the extreme, meaning that it's not anymore city using technology, open to technologies or digital cities. It is an environment which has a clear environmental goals and needs to meet them. So meaning that also the concept itself has developed from digital cities to green cities over time, and on one hand, as it has become so broad, it's very difficult to neglect it. So as it has developed as a concept, but on the other hand, I think here locally in Estonia and in Finland, maybe we should start transitioning this as well. That we're not focusing the smart part anymore.
Well, thank you. Now we are very much approaching our lunchtime, and I would like to conclude. And thanks for these very nice remarks. I think there was very clear expectation for Professor Jenni for your future studies. So these benchmarks are very important. So to know in which, let's say, smart city meters Tallinn is attractive for the talents, and in which ones we are behind. So, and there are likely many ones we are ahead. So it is very important to know this quantitative information and to have objective data. When it could be possible to go like Ignar wanted to go, that there will be some wise top-down development plans and strategies. If such data would not be available, when this is likely not so easy to make such a good strategy for the city. But as now we have a future city professor at our university and also serving very much Ülemiste and Tallinn city. Now I expect this kind of objective data and research information will start to accumulate, and I expect this will be also widely used to develop the business and also in the development of Tallinn city. I would like to thank you all, so thanks for the audience, for active participation, and all the panel members for this very nice discussion. And this is now a lunchtime, so the seminar as such is closed now. Thank you.